Hey homesteaders and crafters. Today I'm going to go ahead and work on threading my antique Singer 66 machine, and your machine may be different than mine, so the threading may not be exactly the same, but at least having a visual to see how one works can be helpful in, I think, threading your machine and seeing how just the basic mechanics of it work. So I'm going to have to be moving from different perspectives because as I've tried to do this, I find that I keep blocking myself. So in order to get this to have the best visual for you, there's going to be a lot of start and stops. So the first thing, I'm going to pull my light out of the way simply because it seems like it's actually washing everything out. I'm still using this really bright thread. Hopefully it's a little bit easier to see with the dark machine. The first place you're gonna put the thread is over this little hook. And you're gonna come underneath the stitch tensioner. And then there's a little spring here that thread is gonna have to go behind it and then come forward. And when you tug on it, you should actually see that spring kind of move, and you should be able to see that hopefully. And this is actually, this little screw here is how you adjust the thread tensioning. This regulator right here, there's a little hole up at the top. You think that that's where you're supposed to put the hole because, or put the thread just through the hole, makes sense. But actually you're just gonna go right underneath it. That's all you're doing for that. Come through the eyelet at the top. I'm gonna pull this a little bit more so that I get more thread. And then there's just a little tiny hole here that you thread down through. That hole is big enough that you should be able to see it fairly easily. And then one of the things that you're probably going to need eventually is one of these threaders. They're very helpful, especially as we get a little bit older. Here's a thread guide. You want to put the thread behind that. And then if you have good enough eyes, go ahead and thread it by all means. If your thread is frayed, cutting it will provide a better blunt edge so that you can get the thread to go through the hole more easily. But if you can't, you're having problems, and it happens. Sometimes thread just, is difficult. Use one of these threaders, push it all the way through, and then you thread through the larger wire. And then all you have to do is just pull it. And you have it into the threader. Make sure you get it set the way you need to, and then it goes underneath the presser foot and comes out the back way this way. I would give myself an extra long tail just to make sure that you're not going to have it when this footman starts to go, it'll actually start to backtrack with that thread, and you don't want it to unthread itself off of the needle. So that is basically it at this point. The machine is threaded. For the top part, you need to put your bobbin in, but this is how it works. The next part, I'll go ahead and show you how to put the bobbin in. Okay, the next part of this is actually putting the bobbin into the bobbin case. So we're going to slide this open. And one of the first things I want to show you is that if you just toss this in here and you actually put the thread in the wrong direction, let's say there is a proper way to put the thread in and you're like, oops, that's not right. There's a little depressor foot that will pop the bobbin up so that you can more easily grab a hold of it. And then that way you can roll it out and start again. So for my machine, you hold the bobbin in your left hand with the thread going from the right. The thread is kind of coming around the right and going off to the left. So you set it in the case this way. There's a little slot here that you put it in that, and you draw it to the back. my hand out of the way, you draw it to the back, and the thread is in. Now I kind of hold the thread up because you're gonna slide the cover over and make sure that the thread goes through the notch there, completely covers it. And now I've got the thread through the needle off to one side and the bobbin going in two different directions. This maybe might help you see what's going to be happening, because we have to get the thread from where it's at right now to actually come up through the bottom here through the dog, so that the thread and the bobbin actually work together to stitch the top and the bottom. Basically, they create that loop. So now all I'm going to do is by hand crank forward the machine, and then give that, actually I need to give myself a little bit more thread. See if that does anything. Should, hopefully. I got a little tiny bit of the thread came up through, so I'm just going to grab a hold of that. And pull both of those off to the side. So now you're basically ready for sewing. I've got some old black material so that hopefully you'll be able to see the stitching a little bit more easily. Get your thread kind of tensioned off to the side, push the depressor foot down, and then you roll the knob forward. It gets you going in that forward direction, and you can just start sewing. Okay. Now you should be able to hopefully see the thread off of this color, but I'm going to go ahead and turn it. So I want to see if I can move off to the side a little bit. Maybe you can see the stitching action a little bit better. And I actually push the needle down into the thread and basically have it stay into the material. It's gonna be like a post where the material can swing off of, and you're not gonna lose your spot. And from there, you put your presser foot down, and you can just go ahead and sew a little bit further. Now, let's just say that you were actually going to start sewing and you needed to lock in your beginning stitches. So you started, you did a few stitches. From there, same thing, the needle is in the material. You turn your sewing completely 180 degrees so that you're going to sew backwards on what you just sewed, and you only have to do just 1 or 2 stitches. That's it. The thread or the needle in the material, release the presser foot, go backwards or turn the material 180 degrees so it's going basically in the right direction that you were going before, but backwards to what it was. And then start with your treadling action, and you can just continue to sew. That is basically it. They're low-tech machines. They're wonderful machines. For any kind of beginning sewer, I think that they are wonderful to have because you can have a lot more control, and then you can see what the stitches look like. They're tighter, I think, slightly. Maybe I'm wrong, but they seem to be a little bit tighter than some of the modern stitches. This darker area right here, that's where I basically locked it in. I went backwards and then forwards again. But here's the beginning where I had started, and I mean, you can kind of pull it apart a little bit, but it still stays fairly locked in. And if you pull on your front and your back, you kind of retighten everything up again. So, great machines. If you see them out and about and think that they're old machines and they're not worth anything, think again. They're wonderful. In fact, probably some of your current clothing that's in your closet that has been made in other countries have been sewn on a machine just like this. Very, very durable. And a pleasure to work with. So I hope you enjoyed that. Enjoy your projects. Bye for now.